centuries, this was all disappearing. And so, to the extent that kinship was an obstacle to the consolidation of state power, that just wasn't a problem in Europe the way it was in China, in India, and so forth. And then I think religion was organized on a different institutional basis, where you had a one, centralized religious institution that could act powerfully to limit in certain ways the power of European monarchs, but it could also, as an institution, collaborate with that same monarch and achieve, therefore, a higher level collective action that I think these Indian polities were simply never able to, to achieve. I mean, for example, there's just nothing like the equivalent. There's no Indian pope, that can give his blessing to the Holy Roman Empire if he chooses to do so, because it's a much more decentralized system.
Thank you very much for your lecture. I really admire your intellectual courage to deal with this kind of big, vast issues you usually have done, and then other academics would feel queasy to deal with.
Yeah, well, a lot of them don't have tenure, so.
As an economist who has been working on development, I don't have that much knowledge about politics and other deep issues. I'm just curious that while you are comparing between China and India, in India, why the Indian Brahminic religion was not really affected by anything else, like in your example, Ashoka was actually adopting the Buddhism, which came out of the Brahmin religion, but which really pervaded. But why they were not? They didn't have a chance to really be affected by that. And in China, while you are talking about a lack of religion, but in Chinese dynasties, every dynasty needed some political legitimacy, and even in transition from Qin dynasty to Han dynasty, Han dynasty had to choose the Confucianism from legalism you are talking about, which was really basis of the Qin dynasty. So, in some sense, in my view, that the it seems to be a little bit unfair to say Chinese didn't have a really religion. They had a sort of heavenly. I'm not a Chinese, so they had a sort of always the kings and emperors needed a sort of legitimacy as a heavenly will, which was a basis of the Confucianism and other things. So I'm just curious about those views.
All of that. Those are good questions, and there's actually a good answer, I think, to all of them. First of all, it has to do with, well, let's just begin with definition of terms. Confucianism is not a religion. It's a secular ideology. It does not refer to a transcendental being or a spiritual world, and so forth. It's a set of ideas. When I say that China never had religion, it did have ancestor worship. And as I said, it did have Taoism and Buddhism, but those entered into Chinese society not from the top. I mean, there were emperors that were Buddhists, but by and large, those were protest religions of people that were not in power, that wanted some source of unity and identity and so forth. But the more important thing was an institutional one, which is that religion, China, right from the beginning, was what Weber called Caesaro-Papist, meaning that the emperor was the one that had the power to appoint the priests. In Europe, in India, and in the Middle East, the secular ruler did not have that power. That religion was under the custody of a separate class of priests who appointed themselves. They had their own form of legitimation. They did not need political power to get ahead. In the Eastern Church, this then got united, and the Eastern Church became Caesaro-Papist. But in those other societies, you always had a separate ulama or Catholic Church